do I have a secured yes from you when I end up doing a version of The Last Dance for ESPN in 10 years to sit you down and get your interviews?
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely. Hopefully I'm just unrecognizable at that point. I'm like 600 pounds, like with piercings and tats and like talking about the good old. Pretty much, I want to be Dennis Rodman in the interview. I want to just completely have gone through, the bender of life, and then you sit me down in front of the camera, and they're like, "There's no way this guy was ever an athlete of any kind."
Don't worry, you'll be the first person to have a lower third with a question mark on your name.
Yeah, that's what I want, and everything's in like subtitles because you can't understand what I'm saying.
What is up, ladies and gents? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Rafa Esparza, coming to you with another great installment of Grappling Hour. Robot voice, must do intro. Does it always sound the same? I feel like we get to a point where you want to have that balance between a regular call sign, aka like a catchphrase or a thing that you do, and I am running motions, voice, so I try not to be a complete robot all the time. All right. Delete, edit. All right, here's what I'm going to tell you guys. I'm very excited for our guest. It's been a while since I've talked with him, but before we get to him, let's get down to business. First, if you like me and support me, and I hope you answered yes to both of those ideas, then it would be great if you could go to HY.PAGE/Grappling Hour and become a member of the Grappling Hour community. The way it works is this. $5 a month, you see these interviews 30 days before everybody else. But Raph, I can just wait for 30 days. True, but then you'd be the last to know. And how embarrassing was it to be the last to know in like grade school? Everybody made fun of you. They called you poor or homeless. Like, it's that kind of level. It's mean. The kids on the street, not very nice. But what I can tell you is this. If you pay a few extra dollars, you can also get our premium tier, which is episodes that aren't available anywhere else. So we're talking mini-sodes or extra podcast episodes where we ask about steroids with our friends. We ask them about the athletes that they had the most respect for. And yes, we're even starting to expand to some of my training footage. And we have a segment where people can roast my competition footage, which is fun for everybody except for me. And that's fine as long as I charge you for it. So yeah, you guys can see that. Don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe on this video at any time you want, and join our Discord where we are continuing conversations that we have here and more and more. All right, enough boring stuff. Frank Rosenthal. We go fairly back in our time together because this young man is an excellent jiu-jitsu practitioner, a sweetheart of a human being. He definitely talks, I wouldn't say some of the best trash, but it's definitely some of the most pointed trash, because sometimes he'll put up just like a catchphrase about one of his training partners. And it's usually short, but it's usually like, I have no idea what happened in that role, but I think I do. So even without that full context, when I see this man by proxy, I'm always happy to see that he is doing well. He has recently opened up a school, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But he has been returning to competition, and I got to tell you, he is somebody who, if he is competing, get excited. And the fact that he's able to compete in such a short time since he has opened his school warms my heart, and it lets me know that things are going well for him. So why don't we just catch up with longtime friend of the show, Frank Rosenthal. Frank, how are you doing, sir?
Doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's a pleasure to see you. I know you've been busy, but what prompted this let's get back to competition? Because shouldn't you be at a school? Shouldn't you be like, I don't know, mopping mats and ordering new supplies or going around and putting drywall somewhere that somebody put a dent into with their giant head during wrestling?
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely no shortage of me mopping mats and ordering hand soap and, doing all the admin stuff. But I made the decision, before I opened the gym that I'm very much still like on the journey of competing. And I think competing is something that for me kind of makes my jiu-jitsu better and gives me like good direction. So training for competition, getting out there, and now at this point, especially getting matches with, some of the best guys out there is just valuable for me as a martial artist. I don't need to compete. It's not like I ever, made a living off of competing, as most jiu-jitsu guys don't. I did it because I liked it, and I thought that it was important for me to do as a martial artist. And now that I own a school, I feel like, it hasn't really changed. I definitely have more on my plate. So I'm not quite as active as maybe I was 5 years ago. But yeah, I like the idea of leading from the front, win or lose, I'm going to train the right way, get prepared, and go out there and, get to compete with some of the best guys. So I think that's, it's good for me. It's a win-win. And then I get to come back and, share that experience with my students, and hopefully it makes me a better instructor as well.
I love the fact that it seems like the finishers guys have a direct bat phone to you, because I see you on their posters and that's what keeps me informed. But that relationship has been going on for a very long time.
Yeah, it's man, I met Zach before he opened 10th Planet Bethlehem, when they were operating out of somebody else's space. They were just renting space. I probably met Zach in 2011, something like that. So I've known him over a decade. I've seen his growth from the beginning, from him both as a competitor to a school owner to now, directing the tournament and organizing the finishers events. And what those guys have built has been really impressive. Like, Northeast Pennsylvania was not a hub for jiu-jitsu. Now there's some good schools there, and then you go, in the Philly area, there's some good jiu-jitsu too. But where Zach is, like, they really started that kind of culture out there. So I'm happy for him, as a friend. We've competed against each other, so there's a lot of mutual respect there. And, just him as a promoter, he's always done right by me to help me as an athlete. I was on the very first finishers event. I think I have probably the most finishers appearances of any of the guys that have done the tournament. And yeah, I will always, in whatever way I can, support their tournament, whether it's me competing or, one day coaching my own guys at their event. They've been really good to me, and I'm a big fan of what they're doing.
So I know that when you have new students or a new school where you have a bunch of students, what they may not realize, or maybe they're starting to realize now, is that they're also getting volunteered to help you prep for some of these super fights. So what has been their reaction when Anakin Skywalker returns back to the Jedi Temple and is kind of like, uh-oh, yeah, he's going a little ham right now?
Yeah, so it's funny. I think that's definitely an occurrence for school owners that also compete. For me, to be honest, it's been a little bit segregated because my school is so new that my job right now is really focused on them. And I want to make it as clear as possible when I'm teaching that they're my emphasis and that's where my area of focus is. So what I've been trying to do is I get the majority of my training done in between the hours in which I'm teaching. So I have like time that's for me as an athlete. And then when I'm at Phantom, I try to really just only play the role of the instructor. Of course, I'm training. I train in every class. Like, I'm training with all the guys, and that's additional training. But I'm making sure to not make that the bulk of my preparation because of the fact that I want to make sure I'm there for them as a coach first. I think as the school gets more and more developed and guys get higher up in rank and skill, that situation will change. I look forward to the day where, I can do like a full training camp, so to speak, like with my own guys, because they'll be at that level. But right now we have a pretty good kind of system going because of the fact that I'm so close to Ryan's school and so close to my friend Adam's school that the three of us get to train together. So I try to get my training done with them and then bring somebody in at night, also train with my guys. But I'm trying to keep it a little bit compartmentalized, at least for right now, so that I can focus 100% on both. Like either my focus is on me athletically or on them as their instructor, at least for right now.
What has it been like to train with Ryan? Because he's such a unique enigma in jiu-jitsu to all of us. Like,
Yeah.
we all recognize he's super good. He's also made that transition into fighting. We have not seen him. I know he's had to go through injuries and repairs. It felt like every time for a certain era, I saw him getting another surgery on the Instagram, and it was always like, damn, dude, I hope he's okay. But then you see him back on the mats, and you go, I think he's okay. Is he good? So I know there's a premium, though, for you as an athlete to get to train with somebody like that.
Yeah. I moved here 2 years ago, but I've been friends with Ryan since about 2018. That's when we started training together. And it's been, man, it's been one of the weirdest but best experiences I've ever had. And I say weird because it's rare that this late in my opinion, in your development, that you get totally reshaped in the way that you look at martial arts. Like when I moved to Virginia, I had already been training for, 13 or 14 years. Like I was already a black belt and had been part of a really successful team. And so I think it gets kind of easy to get stuck in your ways. But one of the weirdest things and best things about when I met Ryan was he just totally reshaped the way that I look at martial arts. And I think that's really uncommon. And I think I'm really lucky to have been put in that situation. The majority of my jiu-jitsu career, I got to train under John, and now I get to train under Ryan. Like, not many people can say that. Most people don't get to train either under anybody that's as, insightful as either of those two guys. So the fact that I got to experience both has been, I recognize that that's not the norm, and I'm very grateful for that. And it's been incredible. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And from my limited interactions with him, he has been a pretty top-notch person. So I'm very glad to see that you get not only the jiu-jitsu side of him, but that you also have somebody that you can kind of know is like, no, he gets what this is. Like, he understands if you're going to be an MMA athlete, this is how you need to train. If you're a jiu-jitsu guy, this is how you need to train. So having that outside perspective, I'm sure, is very good, especially with somebody who has that much experience. I have to ask this, Frank. Why? Why open a school? Because it's really hard, man. And that's the part that we don't advertise. And I think one of the things that happens from when you go from innocence to experience or youth to being older is that you go from, man, having a school would be so dope. I could train all I want, do everything I want, to like structuring a business as this sport is emerging means there's a wider net than there was before, but that also means more competition. That means more people are going to be looking for specific things. And then you still have to deal with civilians who are coming in and saying, like, I don't know what this is, man. I just want my kids to get healthy, or I just need to get them to get their energy out. So given all of those things, why a gym, and how long in your brain had you really considered the thought of actually opening up a gym?
Great question. I would say I always saw myself making a career out of jiu-jitsu, and I always saw myself opening a gym because I realized early on that one, time is undefeated and you can't compete forever. And two, even if you are competing at the top level, the amount of guys that are making a real living doing that, I can count on one hand. So being a pretty, I don't want to say pessimist, but a realist, I was like, hey, this is going to be a good pathway to start to think about. In terms of the timeline and the location, I always saw myself opening up in New York. I'm from New York. I trained there my whole life. But when I moved to Virginia, really fell in love with the area. The fact that I can continue to get high-level training here was a big thing. I didn't want to open a gym and be in an area where I was not going to be able to continue to grow as a martial artist. So Virginia made a lot of sense. And then as for the other stuff, I wasn't unaware of the difficult aspects of this business. I've been teaching martial arts for a long time. I'm pretty well read on both the administrative side as well as obviously the X's and O's of what goes on the mats. And I felt pretty confident that through a lot of experiences learning what to do, but also what not to do, that I could create like a culture and a level of instruction that I would feel was worth it. So I don't think any career is perfect. I don't think you get to do anything and it's just like sunshine and rainbows all the time. But to me, opening a business and doing it the way that I felt is right, I felt that the benefits far outweighed the subtle headaches that you might get here and there. So I think it is what you make it. If you're prepared and you work hard and you try to surround yourself with good people, it'll really mitigate a lot of the headaches that you run into. If you go about it in a really inefficient way, you're going to struggle. And I saw the same thing in my competitive career. I watched guys that I said, man, like I wouldn't have done this way, whether it was the way that they were training or the way that they chose to compete or conduct themselves. I just always felt that I stayed pretty true to myself. So with business, it was the same thing. I was like, well, I'm not going to make some of these mistakes that, maybe other people make that bring on these headaches that you're talking about. I'm just going to try to, teach the best jiu-jitsu I can, be good to people, work hard, and, create the culture at the academy that I feel is going to make people want to be a part of it.
Okay. I'd like to get specific here, and maybe it may be hard to quantify, but how would you describe the culture at your gym?
So what a big thing for me was providing an environment that we want the right kind of people. And by the right kind of people, I mean, I understand that when you open a business and you have bills and you want to feed yourself and you want to make money, it can be very easy to fall into the thing of like creating an environment that's just you cater to everybody. And by doing that, like, yes, you might make more money, but you can't really control the culture that happens at the gym because you're just trying to say yes to everybody. And that's going to create some problems. So the culture I'm trying to create is one where pretty much people can come in, they can learn high level martial arts, they can work hard, they can study martial arts in a professional way, even if they're not a professional. And this is one thing that I kind of took from my time at Henzo's that I really liked, was the idea that you have all these people that have regular jobs and lives and families, but the hour or 2 hours that they're at the academy, they're really committed to learning jiu-jitsu and being a part of like a team. And whether or not they compete doesn't really matter. And so what I'm trying to create is that where people can come in, work hard, get the benefits of jiu-jitsu, and then go on with their lives. I don't want to monopolize these people's times. I'm not trying to grow the next, big competition team. But I do believe that, like, even just committing an hour a day, if it's done right and you're really committed, like, you can get to a reasonably high level. And if you're doing it and you're spending your time and you're spending your money, you may as well see if you can get good. Because jiu-jitsu is more fun when you're good at it. That's just the reality of it.
That is true. As someone who's not good at it, it is really frustrating. So yes, I totally understand that. What I would like to know, as kind of a natural progression from that, is, I guess, as somebody who's looking without an academy, and I don't really foresee having an academy at this juncture in my life, I have the opposite, which is I teach at a gym. And I love it because I go, teach, and leave. My wife will randomly just say out of the blue and go, why don't you open a gym? And I go, no. And it's a very nice and sweet thing that she is saying in one way and encouraging me, like, wow, you seem really good at this. You seem really happy about it. And I go, you have to be all in. And I have too many other things that I do. And I don't know what it would be like if I was doing an interview with a really prominent athlete and my students come in, and then you have a Sophie's choice of like, this is my brand, this is my student. Shit. So as she's saying this, I realized at one point, I go, oh, you want me to have a gym because you'd be good at running it. You'd be good at the admin stuff. Oh, I understand now. Yeah, no, not worth it. I'm like,
Right.
you don't want to see all the shit that has to go on every single day that's not the admin stuff. So from my perspective, I'm always open to it at a different juncture or time. But for right now, I'm like, no, I'm still doing work and entertainment. I still do interviews. And then my release is getting to train. And finding time for that training is always more and more difficult the more things you add on. So let alone if you're going to be like you, still competing, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So looking at it from the outside in, I can't help but wonder what has helped you the most in terms of making that culture happen. Because it's one thing to say, I want students like this, like, or to tell people, oh man, I'm only going to have cool students at my gym. And you go, you're not in charge of that. You get what you get, but the culture shapes it. So I'm curious what like helped you the most to either create that culture or inform you or to give you that kind of approach.
I think the single thing I would say that has helped the most is leading by example of what you want. So I'll give you an example, like martial arts instructors in general, and I'm sure you've experienced this because you teach class all the time. If somebody, rolls in 20 minutes late and you didn't know they were going to be late, it's not like they texted you beforehand. They roll in 20 minutes late, coffee in hand, cell phone in the other hand. As an instructor, you'd be pretty unhappy with that, right? You'd be like, hey, dude, like what the fuck? Like, that's like a little bit disrespectful. So as an instructor, though, how you see people like, if you are showing up 5 minutes before the gym is supposed to open and you're scrambling in there and then getting mad at them for being late, like how is that supposed to work, right? Or from an instruction perspective, like or a technical perspective, you tell these guys, hey, you need to drill. Like live rolling is great. We love to train live, but skill development is also done through drilling. But you never drill. Like what kind of example does that set? So for me, I think that I've done my best to really just try to lead by example. Like if I spill something on the mat, I go and clean it up, because if somebody spilled something on my mat, I would want them to clean it up. After class, I'm always getting more training in. Now, I don't make anybody do that. Like you don't have to train more once class is over. You're welcome to leave. I understand that you have a life, but I try to do little things here and there to set the example. And I think that tends to roll downhill. So just things like saying hello to people when they walk in and being nice to them, being on time, like getting that extra 10, 20, 30 minutes of training or drilling in. These things, people start to see how you behave and they start to emulate what they see from, the guys at the top. So I think that, at least from what I've seen, there tends to be a lot of copycat behavior. It's like a child copying their parent. So what they see is most likely what they're going to do. And if they see you doing the right things or the things that you perceive to, that you want, they're more likely to copy that. So I think that's been a big help. And, I'll continue to try to do that.
Good on you, man. I got a very encouraging sign myself from a student. So this kid's maybe 12 or so, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. And he's at our gym. In reverse version, I go to a wrestling class on Wednesday nights. And I show up late. And the instructor knows, because I'm always like, hey, man, I'm coming from work or I'm doing this. So he's told. But this young kid sees me. And it's the end of class, and I'm going over notes with the wrestling instructor. I'm like, hey, man, this is something I wanted notes on. Can I get something on this? And he's like, really helpful. And this kid like stops and he like interrupts us. And I'm like, what's up? And he goes, Coach, I just want to say, I didn't say hi to you. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry that I didn't come say hi to you. And I'm like, it's not my class. Like, you don't have to say hi to me. It's okay. Like, I came late as well. So it's not like you were here. I came late. I should be apologizing to the class. But I like, instead of giving him shit, I go, don't ruin this, ref. This is a good thing. Like,
Yeah.
This is not technically something you want to correct just for the joke, because I go, it's a good moral that this kid is picking up. So I go, yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate that. Good job. Keep up the good work. And the wrestling coach looks at me and he's like, how hard is it for you not to do the joke? And I go, oh, it's so hard, man. I'm like, it's all I'm ever thinking about. And then I remember like, oh, right, I coach here. Shit, don't be a dick. Yeah. So
I think you made the right move, though.
I think so. I also recognize that these guys pick up our habits. So sometimes the kids, and by kids, I mean even the young guys, the young adults, if you would, or the adults sometimes, who should know better, they pick up on the idea of if you say someone's blank is trash, then that's what they think. So I'm pretty big on like, hey guys, let's be very clear. I'm the funniest one here. So if I'm not doing a joke about somebody's game, maybe you shouldn't, because they're going to start doing it. And that leads to a perception that that person's not good at something, when in reality, they're not as good as the other person whose bag is that thing. So I'm like, all these things have repercussions. It's just sometimes I wonder, like, well, dude, why is this dude talking so much shit? Like, you get one of the youngins yapping at the old guys, being like, yo, why is your game so trash? Your half guard, it's the streets say it's trash. And I go, oh God.
Yeah.
All right, we should put a cap on that. And then sometimes I'll look at the owner like, and he goes, yeah, you're right. And it's very sad because the owner and I talk shit to each other all day. And so I have to go up to him and I'm like, hey man, DM me your shit. Don't do it to the kids.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he goes, yeah, you're right. So then cut to him and be like, hey coach, can I speak to you outside? I was like, yeah, of course. And it's just me being like, yo, I want to tell you something. You didn't train today. That fucking pissed at you. You want to grab a beer? Fuck you. All right, fine. And then we yell at each other for about 10 minutes. So we've come to a good accord on that. I asked what the culture, I asked what helped you the most. So I should ask this. Where did the name Phantom come from? Because to me, you're not going to find 50 Phantom Jiu-Jitsus. So kudos on that, because it's hard coming up with a Jiu-Jitsu name in today's landscape. Because
it was literally it was the hardest part of the whole process.
How long did it take you and how did you stumble upon it?
Okay, so it took months. Pretty much the way we started was anytime my girlfriend and I were in the car, we would just start rattling off names, making a list, and we couldn't, just nothing felt right. Nothing was like, everything felt forced, you know? And I'm not very creative like that. Like I'm good at like task oriented stuff. I'm pretty disciplined, but I'm not like the creative type. So we were driving one day and she said Phantom. And I was like, that sounds really cool, actually. I'm like, because it doesn't sound super specific to jiu-jitsu. Like it sounds, and I don't know of any other jiu-jitsu school, although I'm sure there are, named Phantom. So it didn't sound cliche. And then what really hit home though was there's an interview that Ryan did. It's a Stuart Cooper film, like a short that he did on YouTube. And they asked him, you know, what do you feel like jiu-jitsu is to you? And one of the ways that he described it was when it's done well, you feel whatever the martial art, you feel like you're fighting a ghost. When you want to find it, you can't, and when you want to, and it finds you and you can't get rid of it. And I really thought about that, and I was like, man, like I definitely don't fight like that yet, but I'm striving to. And I feel like a lot of the lessons that Ryan's taught me and the way that he approaches martial arts that's what I believe is like kind of the end goal. And again, like I don't know that I'll ever get there, but in the attempt to do that and the approach, I think is how I would want my students to learn martial arts. You know, if you're like me and you're not like super athletic, super attribute driven, I think that's a good project to invest in to kind of, you know, get to where you want to get to in terms of martial arts skill. And I can tell you this, Ryan certainly feels like a fucking ghost when you try to grapple him. I think I'm far from that, but again, that was kind of the motivation, like long term. Like I think it serves as a good guide for how I'm trying to approach martial arts and how I'm trying to teach it to my students. So yeah, that's kind of how it came about. When I thought about those two things together, I was like, this sounds pretty cool. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with it.
Okay. Most people, when they're influenced in one way, don't necessarily have access to that person. So it sounds like your wife comes up with the name, and
Girlfriend.
maybe you get it.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I'm sorry, your girlfriend. My apologies. Uh,
Okay.
been there. I understand what the difference is. When your girlfriend comes up with the idea, and you have access to the actual person who kind of gave you like the encouragement virtually, like, yeah, that does seem like a unique concept. Do you ever espouse that on over to Ryan? Do you let him know that it was influential, or is it too dangerously close that you're like, oh shit, if he knows this, he thinks that he came up with the name? So yes, you were creatively inspiring me in a non-binding legally fashion.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, man. I actually don't think I've ever told Ryan directly why, which is funny considering that we speak on a daily basis and train. I have expressed to him on a number of occasions at this point my appreciation for him bringing me to Virginia and being a big help both on and off the mats. With my jiu-jitsu, with the business, with just advice. So I think he certainly knows that he's been an influence in a positive way. I don't think I ever told him though, like exactly what I was thinking when I named the school. But yeah, I mean, 50-50 was taken. And I also don't have that good of a 50-50 that I would feel right naming my academy. So I had to find another way to rip off my friends. So this, I guess, seemed like the best second choice in order to do that.
Well, since we're talking about second choice, I'd like to know what some of the rejected ones were, because there's no bad ideas in brainstorming, but there are ones that don't make it to the final selection.
Definitely.
So were there a few that either you came up with, or that your girlfriend came up with, or your friends or training partners came up with, that you immediately shot down like, no way in hell is that the name?
I think I hate to say, I love my mother to death. I think the worst suggestions by far came from my mom on a daily basis. And at a certain point, I think I had to say to her, Mom, I love you. You will absolutely be a part of this business. But in terms of the name, you have to sit out, because every suggestion was worse than the previous. Another one that I almost wanted to go with, just simply like to be a troll. My good friend Adam Benioun, he's got an academy in Springfield. It's called Black Cat Jiu-Jitsu. And I was just to fuck with him, I was thinking about naming mine White Tiger, just to see if I could like push the limits. But that seemed like a pretty committed, almost too committed of a troll. But White Tiger was that would have been funny. To be honest, there was nothing else that was really close where I was picking between the two. It was I really, when I like Phantom kind of just like struck, so we went with that.
Okay. I have a couple questions that follow up on this. So I'm gonna go to the actual concept in a second, but I want to pay tribute to whoever the artist is, because you're wearing one of your own branded shirts, smart man. But okay. When I was looking at it, I kept thinking, I'm like, I can only see like right here, and I go, is that motherfucking Skeletor? And then that's not Skeletor, because that would be legally problematic. But man, it sure looks dope, whatever creature that is on the shirt. So who drew that for you?
So this particular one, I worked with an artist that I'm blanking on his name, but I pretty much told him, take the ghost from the Scream movies and put him in a gi, and then put the little Phantom logo on his gi. Because I'm a big 90s fan. Like, so there's a lot of 90s references actually, like in the designs and in the academy. So Scream is obviously like a big 90s movie. So that was kind of like a nod to that. And then the logo for the actual, like that's on the wall mat and that's on some of the rash guards. that's actually kind of a cool story. I was in Europe doing, I was competing, and then I did like a seminar tour, and I was in Amsterdam, and this guy was tagging this wall, and my friend and I were just walking up, and we're like, oh, this looks awesome. Start talking to him. He tags. I had this like FR logo on one of my rash guards, and he tags it on the wall. I was like, this is so sick. And then I ended up staying in touch with him. This was like almost 3 years ago now. And when I opened the academy, I said, listen, I was like, I would love to, hire you to design the logo for my gym. Like, I would love a graffiti inspired logo. And so he ended up doing that for us. And yeah, he's like a very pretty well-known graffiti artist. His name is Snuz, S-N-U-Z. You guys can check him out on Instagram. And he goes all around the world, doing these incredible, this incredible art. And so yeah, I got pretty lucky with that. But I work with a few different guys, like different tattoo artists, stuff like that, to try to just give like a different look. I think a lot of jiu-jitsu gyms, they play it kind of safe, and you see a lot of like redundant kind of designs. I kind of wanted to see if I could do something a little different.
I laugh because one of my very good friends, he was about to open up his gym 2 years ago, and he was sending me names, and he was like, what do you think about these two names? And the first name was New Ground Jiu-Jitsu. And I said, that's a dope name. Go with that. And he's like, you don't like the second name? And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't think that's my go-to. I don't think you could make a gym name that. He's like, okay. That gym's name was New Wave Jiu-Jitsu. And about a week later, it was oddly taken by somebody. I forget whom. But
that's fucking amazing.
I definitely sent him a note as soon as I saw the Danaher post that was like, oh shit. And he looked at me and he goes, oh my God, dude. He goes, thank God we did this. Oh man. He goes, yeah, we dodged a bullet on that. Cause could you imagine, even if you were first, even if you were first, nobody would have cared. And maybe you pick up some traffic, but then you're asking for comparisons, unnecessary drama. I know those guys, so the minute they see me in something, they're going to be like, Raph, what the fuck? And I'm going to go, well, legally we had it first, you dicks. So all I could think of was...
I actually remember exactly where I was when I found out they were going to rename the team. So we were in Puerto Rico, and me and my friend Nick Ortiz were on the beach, and he goes, hey, we're like renaming the team. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, like it's not going to be the DDS anymore. I said, what is it going to be? He's like, New Wave. And I was like, huh. And we were at the beach. He's like, like ride the wave. I'm like, Nick, I get it. We're in Puerto Rico. There's beach. There's wave. I get it. You don't have to explain it. It's a cool name. That's really funny though.
Yeah. And I mean, much like in the way you're influenced and you have direct connection to that influence, this is one of my very good friends. So it's not too far on a 6 degree of separation to get a very lengthy direct message from a certain friend that might be something that I've got to reread about 3 or 4 times before I know exactly what it means. So I was definitely laughing pretty hard, but yeah, I mean, it worked out okay for them. I would ask this because I don't harp on these questions. Do you think we will ever truly know what broke up the DDS? Because we're at a phase now where there's a whole series of people who want to know. And I am of the mindset of, if they want to tell us, y'all will tell us at a certain point. But I feel like people are so intrigued in it, we won't know until there's a documentary in 10 years.
Yeah. It's funny. Me and my friend Tony joke all the time that we are going to write the tell-all book, and it's going to be like set up in like by the years, like 2000 whatever to whatever, and then there's the Puerto Rico chapter, which is obviously going to be the climax of the book, and we just make millions and millions of dollars off of this endeavor and retire on some island somewhere. ironically Puerto Rico. So I'll say this, and I kind of said this from the beginning. The people that were there obviously know why the team broke up. But based on who you ask, you might get a different version because it's all about perception, right? So it's not that any of them are right or wrong. It's just that their opinions as to what broke the team up might differ based on who you ask. So, like, my perception of the situation is obviously going to be really different because, like, I wasn't in the middle of anything. Like, I was just kind of like, I didn't have a problem with anybody. Like, I still, like, I'm on good, like, I don't have an issue with anybody that went to either side. I wasn't in the direct line of fire between the conflicts that were going on. So, and then the guys that were, if you ask them, well, obviously they're going to have a different side, right, than the others. So there were some definite things that were like mutual reasons as to why the team split up. But then further than that, I think it depends on who you ask, and you have to take into consideration their perspective. It is funny though. Someone on a monthly basis will send me like a Reddit thread. I'm not on Reddit. I'm not like well read into it, but they'll send me a Reddit thread with like a new theory or story or conspiracy theory as to why the team broke up. And it's funny, but also weird, I guess, to see people like spin their wheels trying to figure it out. There's still the conspiracy. My favorite one was that they never broke up, that the DDS split up as a promotional stunt to gain attention on both sides. That one was cool. That was creative.
I'll say this, as a pro wrestling fan, I don't discredit any theory. If Danaher wasn't involved, I'd say you all are too stupid to pull off that kind of high wire thing.
That's what I said. I said, guys, you're giving us way too much credit. The average educational level of that team was like 11th grade. And we're being generous, like.
But as it is, it's just, I'll put it to you this way. I've been around enough talent in my life on many different facets, whether it's sports, entertainment, you name it. At a certain point, you recognize things can only go so well with so many egos and so many different wants and needs that those things will deter and break. The question is, we didn't know how or when. What is undeniable is the success, but when you start running into how many people can be successful, who's allowed to be successful, for the love of God, I still don't understand the difference between varsity and junior varsity, because in my brain, I go, I guess I kind of understand that concept, but who is that dude still junior varsity? Because I think that dude's a main dude now. Right. Like, I've seen the cast of SNL have more beneficiary standards for, no, he's a cast member now. He wasn't featured for 2 years. Yeah, that's how it goes. So in my perspective, I've thought of it like this. I know all of the parties involved, and I've interviewed them multiple times since, but there's never been any other question than, what's your response to it? Because I feel they're going to hold on to that story. I feel they're welcome to talk about it if they want to, but I'm more interested in news rather than something salacious from it. So your perspective is appreciated, and thank you for sharing what you did, but I just also chalk it up to, who cares? Like, at some point, if they want to go their own way, let those people make their own money. And sometimes a rivalry can be very good for the sport, especially if it starts to get too stale. So there is some fun in seeing troll posts or long-winded posts saying that this person's not a real champion, because you look at it and you go, all right, this will hopefully get to better matches between everybody. So I wish everybody well, and I've said as much in person, off and on air.
Yeah. I mean, look, like you said, at the end of the day, everybody that was part of it was super, super talented, worked really hard. Everybody seems to be doing well. And I mean, I think would the team, it would have been great if the team could have stayed together, sure. But I think the very things that made it successful often also contribute to teams breaking up. It kind of goes the same for personality, like if someone's super detail oriented and organized and whatever, that's also the same thing that maybe makes them a little neurotic. So the strengths of any individual or team could also be the downfall. It's a double-edged sword. So yeah, I think everybody will be fine. Like both camps seem to be doing well. They're doing their own thing. The fans obviously get a kick out of it, and people are still invested in it. So it is what it is.
I have two comments here. The first is a question, and it is, do I have a secured yes from you when I end up doing a version of The Last Dance for ESPN in 10 years to sit you down and get your interviews?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Hopefully I'm just unrecognizable at that point. I'm like 600 pounds, like with piercings and tats and like talking about the good old, pretty much I want to be Denis Rodman in the interview. I want to just completely have gone through, the bender of life. And then you sit me down in front of the camera and they're like, there's no way this guy was ever an athlete of any kind.
Don't worry, you'll be the first person to have a lower third with a question mark on your name.
Yeah, that's what I want. And everything's in like subtitles because you can't understand what I'm saying.
There's going to be a moment where we're also going to tell the fact that you had to miss ADCC day 2 because you were with Carmen Electra. And you're like, how did she make it back?
Yeah.
Where was she? How did she get here too? So the other part of it is this, which is I sometimes see these Reddit posts as well. And I know a lot of people buy into them. I'm skeptical of almost anything I read. Like, it could be the truth, and I would still be like, I don't know who this is. This is anonymous, or I don't know what that is, but yeah, okay. And then when you hear thinly veiled reveals, where they're like, well, you'd have to ask this person, but I will say bank statements. And you're like, I don't want to do any of this work, man. Just fucking tell us if you want to tell us, and don't tell us if you don't want to tell us. Having said all that, I do think there is one benefit from this, which is that Danaher's long-winded posts have inspired fan fiction, which promotes reading at its core. So I can get behind that, because sometimes I look at these things and I go, this is adorable. These guys, you know what? This dude spent time writing this. And as a fellow writer, congrats, man. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good Lord. All right. I want to return back to the name, because now that you have named the gym, and this before you even open, I wanted to know, what did the name Phantom Jiu-Jitsu mean to you? Because you mentioned, you were inspired by that statement that Ryan was saying. And there's always the perception of what you think it's going to mean, and then what it means maybe a few months into actually having it. Now a few months with students. So with all of that context in mind, what does the name now Phantom Jiu-Jitsu mean to you?
Man, another good question. To be honest, I think that's still being kind of determined, like I'm 4 months in, and every month has been pretty different, to be honest, because you got to remember, so I opened on day 1, I think with like 40 people, right? And, we've more than doubled that. So when you're in the beginning stages, it's kind of like jiu-jitsu, same thing. You're growing so rapidly that you're almost like a different person. Like when you start jiu-jitsu, you're a different person 4 months in than you were the day you walked in. Like if you were to get in a fight with a version of yourself from the day you walked in, even after 4 months of training, it wouldn't be a very competitive fight. So I guess my point is, the culture of the gym is I know what the goal is, like we talked about, and the feel of the gym and what Phantom means is kind of changing on a monthly basis. The more that we get, new students and different things are happening at the academy. Like for example, next month, I'm going to take my guys to their first competition at the end of October. So it changes. What I can say is that one thing that's pretty consistent is it's a group of really hardworking people that come in, are welcoming, help each other, and really seem to want this business or this team, whatever you want to call it, to do well. And the amount of support that they've given has really been awesome. So when I think of like what's Phantom Jiu-Jitsu, I tend to just think of my students that, you know, come in on a daily basis, work hard, are super supportive, and it makes me really happy. You know, I hope that continues as the team grows.
That's pretty dope to hear. And furthering that line of logic, I want to know what has surprised you the most since opening. I'm sure sometimes it can be, for some people, it's legitimately like, man, I was surprised people showed up, because it's not like, damn, I'm bad at jiu-jitsu when they're gym openers. I've seen friends and colleagues nationwide who have been like, yeah, I built and they came and I wasn't sure that they would. In some respects, it's I was surprised this happened, or I was surprised this happened. For you, what has been the most surprising element so far?
I think the first thing you said, I remember like opening night, my mom was there. My parents came to town that weekend, helped me get everything ready. And I remember like unlocking the door for that first night of class and feeling like it's almost like you're throwing a high school party. You're like, all right, we got all the kegs, we got the music. Are the girls going to show? Like, this could get real weird. It could be me and three buddies, you know, and we'll make a good time out of it, but we just don't know who's going to show up. So I think in the beginning, and even now, it's still like, you're always like, is this going to continue? Like, are people just going to keep coming? Like, and luckily the answer has been yes. You know, people seem to enjoy training there, and I certainly enjoy teaching them. So, but yeah, that first day and that first month, oh my God, you're just like, I hope it works. Like, I'm willing to put the work in, but shit, like, what if nobody shows up and I'm just training, you know, with two people? So that's definitely I think a common thing for people that open an academy.
I will tell you, as somebody who's worked in comedy, there is nothing worse than having to promote your own shows. So I would do this on a monthly basis, where you would cast a certain amount of people that you would recruit to come see it, and then you would have drop-off percentages that you build into it. So it becomes like a science. So that's why anytime, you know, somebody, when we were doing tournaments and we're like, oh, hey, we need to make a push to get more people to sign up. But I go, here is the structure to do it. And they're like, how do you do this? And I was like, oh, I did this from doing comedy. And they're like, well, how'd that feel when you actually got people to come? Because you did some very, very successfully. And I go, it never felt okay until the minute the comedy show started. And then I could actually perform. But up until then, it was anxiety. Just constant, like, oh, God, are you coming? God, I hope you come. Okay. And then once they showed up, people were like, yo, you look really tired. I'm like, it's because I am.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think I was sick for like 4 days after the opening. You're just like, you're emotionally just drained, but in a good way. Like, it was excitement, you know, but it kind of goes like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, it's good. It's just, you need a few days to recover emotionally and physically from the thing. I would always block out the next day from a comedy show to do absolutely nothing. And like, my wife would just look at me and go, why are you just on the couch? How have you still been there? And I'm like, I don't want to move. I don't want to do anything. I just want my brain to stop moving and my body to get some time to remember how to move. And then she would laugh. She's like, all right, well, here's the remote. Bye. Postmates is this. You can get 10% off if you do this. And I was like, sounds good to me. That's really, really good. Frank, it sounds like you've developed a very good culture and a very good beginning 4 months. I'd love to know, where do you see your gym in 1 year's time? Like, idealistic version, where do you see the future for Phantom in 1 year?
I would like to see it just continue the way that it has been. You know, I don't put anything on the table like specifically of like, you know, I want to have this many competitors or this or that. So I see it in a year from now. The crew that started with me in April, I see them, really now like kind of becoming the OGs, so to speak, and really helping to continue to help the new people that come in, and kind of like it'll all funnel down. Obviously, I hope the gym continues to grow in numbers, so that we can continue to do things and get a bigger facility and all stuff like that. But really, I hope that in a year, the people that started have really continued to fall in love with jiu-jitsu, so that they want to train, they get better, and it's just like a revolving effect of positive stuff. The biggest thing in this sport is the attrition rate is really high. It's not for everybody, despite the slogan like jiu-jitsu is for everybody. It's not. It's for people that are kind of willing to stay committed and go through the growing pains. So in a year from now, I see a group of my students that have stuck with it, are really now becoming martial artists and continuing to train, hopefully getting really good. And just the gym continuing to be able to do different stuff, whether that's merchandise, a podcast, whatever. I want to be able to just put stuff out there that people will enjoy. Jiu-jitsu is always going to be the kind of the main pillar of that. But I think that the more that grows, it allows you to do other stuff. Like 50/50, for example, has done a great job of this. Like, Ryan Hall Online, is like a great resource now for people to learn jiu-jitsu. Like, I would like maybe one day there's a Phantom Online. People, I want it to also be a place where, because we're in like a very transient area, like close to DC, where if people come into Virginia, like they want to stop in, they want to take time out of their weekend to make a trip and come train with us. We've already had that, like, to a certain degree, which has been really cool, but I want to see it continue to go in that trend. And so, yeah, those are some of the things I look forward to.
Did you say a podcast, Frank?
I didn't mean literal. I just said podcast because we're doing one. I didn't mean a literal.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Figure of speech.
Okay. I want to know what to brace myself for, because
I'll call it verbal tap too.
Wow. Well, I will say this: verbal tap itself is on the shelf. It is a thing of the past with me and Kevin, which is great because, Kevin is somebody who, when people ask, are like, what happened? I was like, oh, he's fine. He just doesn't want to do MMA right now. And I go, and can you blame him? Because, dude, there's an event for Paris tomorrow, and I don't even know all the fighters. And I'm usually a person who does all the homework. And it is exhausting to keep up with their cheaper and cheaper talent that they are buying on the wire, that I'm like, who is this guy? And I love doing, like, finding out who new people are, but it's just like, they make it seem like you're not paying attention enough, when I go, I pay attention. I watched all 12 goddamn episodes of The Ultimate Fighter. I did my work. You don't even have to do that. It's like jury service at this point.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ. Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Same question, though, but where do you see Frank Rosenthal, the jiu-jitsu competitor, in 1 year's time?
Massively overweight. Definitely weight problem, like the kind that you read about. Retired. Man.
This is in 1 year, Frank? You're going to get massively fat in 1 year?
Degenerative back issues? No. In a year from now, I think I'll continue to be doing what I'm doing now. Still competing, learning as much as I can. Continuing to grow the academy. And, it's funny. I used to have super specific goals in terms of competition, where I was like, I want to win this and I want to win that. And I think that changes as you get a little older and a little like deeper into your career. I definitely still have aspirations, but I'm not hanging my happiness on, if I win this or win that. I'm certainly going to try my absolute best to be successful when I step out there. But, other things in my life have caught up in terms of like their importance. So I want to make a good effort, like as best an effort as possible at everything, and do whatever I need to do to make sure that there's room on my plate to be, the academy owner that I want, and instructor and competitor, and whatever that means, whatever that looks like, that's what I'm going to shoot for. But that plus the weight problem, that's what I see.
Damn it. It's this, you are too skinny to have a weight problem. I can't co-sign on this. Like, you're not actual, like, oh, he's getting there. He might be on the verge of being fat. Like, we can't even do that with you. I have two things on that. The first is one of my friends. This is how you wonder how much you are being listened to. But one of my friends just DM'd me that Denis Rodman is returning to pro wrestling on AEW tomorrow.
Amazing.
So what timing to get that message right now to be like, what the... You can't hear us, can you?
Rodzilla is back.
And two, I'm happy to hear that, man, because as somebody who now has done the reverse, where for years I didn't compete and now I'm just competing, I think what I share with you is very much of like, I think the not competing for years and now starting to do it has made me very like, oh, I appreciate all of this. Like, I'm having a blast. I think if I had tried to do it earlier, I would have been so focused on trying to get a specific result that it would have driven me insane. So now I'm in a good place where I'm like, hey, what are we, Saturday? Yeah, I'm competing. Just make sure I'm not fat, get good training in, come up with decent game plans, go do it. Trial.
I think it's a balance, right? You don't have to be obsessive about it, but at the same time, like I tell my guys, like, you don't go in unprepared. Losing is going to happen. It is what it is. Going in unprepared is not acceptable ever. So, I make sure I'll, maintain that standard, as going forward. And I think, like, you hit the nail on the head. Like you said, hey, I'm going to compete Saturday. I'm getting good training in. My weight's on point. Let it go rip. And that's that.
Because I recognized one of my issues when I was an athlete in high school. Like, I did sports for 11 years growing up, and I took it so seriously. Like, everybody could tell a difference between me on a field and me joking and chill off of it. And they're like, you're not the same person. And I go, I don't know why that is. And I realized as I got older, I was like, oh, I didn't want to let my team down whenever I played a team sport. And whenever I was competing solo or doing it, and there weren't as many of those, it was like, I don't want to do something that doesn't reflect my character. So once I could get that out of it, I found these terms now. So when I am doing jiu-jitsu stuff, it's kind of like, oh, no, I'm not letting anybody down. I'm not doing any of this. But I have that tendency to get a little obsessive on the prepared that I found a good balance. One tournament I came in super over-prepared. The next one I came in a little under-prepared, and I found my balance. I was like, oh, I'm not going to go this extreme, but this is too little. And finding that happy medium is like part of the journey that I am on now, where I go, oh, okay, so I'm not crazy, but I can prepare in a way that I think is fair for myself and that makes me feel comfortable, but that recognizes go rest. And, like, let it happen. Because when that happens, if you come in, you don't get the result you want, doesn't matter how many backup plans you have, you're in the shit. So if you're not receptive to things changing on the fly and being good there, then you can become a basket case as well. So absolutely. I've definitely been very good at giving those notes to others. And so I've tried to do my best on taking my own notes as I am doing it. So Frank, you've been very kind with your time. I want to give you an opportunity to shout out anybody you want to. I'm talking sponsors, your gym, everybody who's been helping you get ready for competitions or for helping you run the school. If there's not a shout out to your mom in here after dropping 2 mentions of her, 1 negative, 1 medium, then I feel we may have some words, sir.
Yeah. Well, let's get that off the table first then. Wouldn't be here without mom and dad. They've been a huge help since day one. Literally day one. And then, here in Virginia, wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without the help of 50/50 Jiu-Jitsu and Black Hat Jiu-Jitsu. Adam and Ryan have both been so helpful, on and off the mats with training, with the business stuff, just friendship in general. So I'll continue to lean on them. for my training and learning to get ready to get out there and continue to compete. Just Phantom Jiu-Jitsu has been awesome so far. Super grateful for all the support from the students, as well as the visitors that drop in. If anybody's in the Northern Virginia area or DC area and you feel like escaping your wife for a couple hours and want to come and beat us up, please stop by. We're in Herndon, Virginia. And that's about it.
Somehow you always find a way to take the easiest plug and give slight pause to the host. That's like, he almost landed the boat. Like, he almost landed the plane. He almost got to the very end, but then he couldn't quite make it through that last little plug without being like, hey, leave your wife. Come on. It'll be a great time.
Divorce your wife, grab your gi, come train with us. Something to that effect.
Yeah, of course. Frank, I have to tell you, man, viewing from afar, you always hope the best for your friends. And I was seeing the look on your face from the first few days of when you had your gym, and it looked very, very happy. And I definitely hope continued success to you and your team out there. And I very much look forward to seeing your team go start to compete, because I think they're also going to become very, very solid with your guidance. Like, there are very few people who have your experience who can kind of shepherd them to having what is both something that is strategically well put in place, but also pretty fun. So I'm definitely excited to see how that team grows and your school in general, because I know it's going to be a very, very fun thing to watch. So congratulations to you, man. I know it's a lot of hard work and it does not go unnoticed, sir.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate all the support over the years.
Always, man. I'm not going to stop doing it now unless you don't appear in my tell-all documentary. That's the other thing I haven't put out there, which is, if y'all don't tell that story, I'm going to do like the Weird Al version of it, where I'm just going to bastardize the facts, and all of a sudden there's Gordon Ryan in the Viet Cong, and it's him essentially like as Rambo, but then, certain things happen. He gets captured. It's a whole mini series. We'll sell it to Netflix in 10 years. It'll be good.
Nice.
All right, I'm going to close this up. I'm going to say bye to you off air in just a second. So my thanks again, Frank Rosenthal. Good talking with you, buddy. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, like, comment, share on this YouTube video. And even if you didn't like any part of this video, and I still don't understand why, if you made it all the way through this hour-long interview, in the comment section, instead of putting your favorite moment or your favorite thing about Frank, why don't you put what you think Phantom Jiu-Jitsu meant? Nah, I don't like that one. Put up other fake names that Frank should have called his gym. That's the good question. In the comment section, should you care and have made it this far in the video. Also, join our Discord and become a member of the Grappling Hour community. HY.PAGE /Grappling Hour. Be there, be there, be there. $5 a month. You get to see these interviews 30 days before everybody else. And for a few extra bucks, you can see extra bonus content. You can watch extra episodes, some of my training footage, and yes, even segments where people roast my competition footage. Because it's not great, but it is funny. And you can also see tape studies where we do special deep dives with some of our friends on matches that I think are pretty dope or that they are willing to talk about. So keep an eye out for that sort of stuff if you are on the premium tier. That's going to do it for us here at the Grappling Hour. Thanks for watching. It's been a great day for grappling. We'll see you back on the mats.